Good morning. We begin in Washington, where a federal grand jury has returned an indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. The indictment, handed down on Thursday in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, includes 2 counts: making a false statement to Congress and obstruction in a criminal case. In a statement, Comey has vehemently declared his innocence. The charges stem from testimony he provided to the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th, 2020. During that hearing, which focused on the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation into the 2016 Trump campaign, Comey was questioned extensively about the Bureau's procedures and his own knowledge of events. The indictment alleges that Comey was not truthful in his responses to the committee. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Alexandria announced the charges, marking a dramatic turn for one of the nation's most prominent and controversial former law enforcement officials. Comey's tenure as FBI director was marked by his handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the subsequent investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, which made him a polarizing figure for both Democrats and Republicans. This indictment now places him at the center of a new legal battle, with potential ramifications that could echo through the political landscape. The specific details of the alleged false statements have not yet been fully unsealed, but legal experts are already weighing the high-profile nature of the case and the challenges of prosecuting a former FBI director. From the legal drama surrounding the former FBI director, we turn to a legislative standoff on Capitol Hill, where lawmakers are racing against the clock to avert a government shutdown. The federal government is set to run out of funding at midnight on September 30th, and a key sticking point in negotiations is health care. The House managed to pass a continuing resolution with bipartisan support on September 19th. This stopgap measure would have kept the government funded at current levels through November 21st, buying more time for broader budget negotiations. However, the measure has stalled in the Senate. Democratic leaders have made it clear they will not support a continuing resolution unless it includes specific provisions to strengthen the nation's healthcare system. Their demands are centered on shoring up subsidies that help millions of Americans afford health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. Republicans have so far resisted including these measures in the short-term spending bill, arguing they should be debated as part of a separate, larger healthcare package. With just days until the deadline, the impasse raises the possibility of a partial shutdown of federal agencies, which would halt a wide range of government services and furlough hundreds of thousands of federal workers. Observers note that while both sides publicly state they want to avoid a shutdown, the disagreement over healthcare policy remains a significant hurdle to overcome before the October 1st deadline arrives. Also set to take effect on October 1st is a new wave of economic measures announced by President Donald Trump. On Thursday, the president declared his intention to impose a series of significant new tariffs on a range of imported goods. The move is consistent with his administration's long-standing America First trade policy aimed at protecting and encouraging domestic manufacturing. Under the new plan, imported heavy-duty trucks will face a 25% tariff. The tariffs are even steeper for home goods, with a 50% levy on kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and related products, and a 30% tariff on upholstered furniture. Perhaps the most dramatic is a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical drugs made by companies that do not commit to building manufacturing plants in the United States. The administration argues these tariffs are necessary to level the playing field for American workers and companies. However, critics and industry groups warn the new taxes will likely lead to higher prices for American consumers and businesses that rely on imported components. They also raise concerns about potential retaliatory tariffs from other nations, which could further disrupt global supply chains and harm U.S. exporters. The announcement has already sent ripples through the affected industries as they prepare for the new trade rules to kick in next week. These policy decisions in Washington are having direct consequences at the state level. In Wisconsin, Planned Parenthood announced on Thursday that it will stop scheduling abortions starting October 1st. The decision is a direct result of funding cuts enacted as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which was signed into law in July. That legislation strips Medicaid funding from any healthcare provider in the state that receives more than $800,000 in federal funds and also performs abortions. The law effectively targets Planned Parenthood, the state's largest abortion provider. The provision was initially set for 10 years, but was reduced to 1 year to ensure its passage in the Senate. The measure has been the subject of a fierce legal battle. In late July, U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani of Massachusetts issued an injunction blocking the provision and stating that it unlawfully singled out Planned Parenthood. However, that victory for the organization was short-lived, as an appeals court later issued a temporary stay, overturning the block and allowing the funding cuts to proceed. As it braces for the financial impact, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin says it has no choice but to cease scheduling abortion services, a move that will significantly alter abortion access for women across the state. Finally, in the world of politics, a notable comment from California Governor Gavin Newsom is drawing attention. Speaking this week in a public conversation with former President Bill Clinton, Newsom suggested that his fellow Democrats should look to an unlikely source for inspiration, the late conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. Kirk, who was assassinated earlier this month during a public event in Utah, was known for his success in mobilizing young conservatives. Newsom argued that Kirk and other conservative figures have effectively tapped into the frustrations of young men, giving them a sense of purpose and belonging. The California governor pointed to what he described as a crisis of men and boys, and said the Democratic Party has been nowhere to be found on the issue. He praised Kirk's ability to organize on college campuses and engage young men by addressing their grievances and giving them hope. Newsom's remarks are particularly striking, not only because he is a leading progressive voice praising a conservative's methods, but also because they come so soon after Kirk's tragic death. The comments are being interpreted as a call for Democrats to reevaluate their outreach strategies and find new ways to connect with a demographic they may be losing.